Oh, hi, audience. This is The Room Spoilers.
This is Spoilers.
Oh, hey, Pappy.
Oh, hey, Brett, and hey, audience, and hey, Mikey, and hey, Josh, and hey, Stevie, and welcome to the biggest mistake of my life, picking The Room for this podcast. We got almost a full boat tonight. We're missing Jordan, but let's go ahead and introduce the guys. Tell us who you are, where you're recording from. I'm recording from Louisville, Colorado, by the way, not Denver anymore. I moved in with my future wife. But you guys tell us who you are, where you're recording from, and what was your favorite in-theater experience, as this has kind of become a cult hit. Let's start off with Stevie, who I won the privilege of hosting from off the Vision Quest episode. Stevie, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Is this like... What do you mean by, like, favorite theater experience? Like the movie itself, or like audience members around me?
It is as open as a yes or no answer on a movie.
Well... Okay, I'll say this. Mad Max is probably the best movie I've ever seen in theaters. But I'll go with an awkward story. I went and saw the new Beauty and the Beast opening weekend when it first came out, and I went by myself. Big mistake, because it was nothing but mothers and daughters and small children, and this mom kept staring at me the entire movie like I was the worst human being in the world. So there you go.
We talked about that on that podcast, that it was very...
so awkward. I wanted to like walk out in the first 5 minutes. It was bad.
Did you go like in a 10 a.m. showing on a Saturday?
1:30 showing on a Sunday. Big mistake.
Yeah, that's primetime kids time.
Church crowd, man. Church crowd.
Let's go to a very churchly man, the man who provides us with the Christ-like figure of every episode. Josh, where are you recording from, and what was your favorite in-theater movie experience?
I would never hit her. Oh, hi, Pap.
I was going to do that.
Yikes.
This is Josh from Elkhart, Goshen area, I guess. Man, like typical Brett fashion, I have like three.
That's you!
I just want to give an honorable shout out to Quiet Place. I saw that alone, not many people in the theater. That's a pretty cool movie experience. But I will say most classic is maybe I went to see Jurassic Park in theater with my dad, and during the scene where they're like on the ride and they're showing like the eggs and stuff, the film projector actually like burnt out, and it was just kind of surreal because it was like at a weird meta time in the movie where you're like watching in a movie within a movie. So I don't know, it was just really memorable. Then we got to come back for free and watch more Jurassic Park for free, and I freaking love that movie.
Great answer. A Quiet Place, former Spoilers movie. I remember the first movie my projector burnt out. It was Muppet Treasure Island. I was a wee lad. I remember being stunned. I didn't even know that could possibly happen. I was like, wait a second. These things aren't infallible? They can break? How fragile is our world that we live in? Very much an existential crisis. You've heard his voice a lot already. Brett from Fort Wayne, what is your favorite in-theater movie experience?
Oh, man. I'd probably say either the latest two Avengers movies or maybe Thor Ragnarok. Like, that was a really rowdy crowd. It was really funny, and everyone was just really into it. So, I don't know.
I thought you were saying Kong before the podcast.
Con?
Congo?
No, he said Congo.
Oh,
I thought he said Meet
Congo.
Joe Black.
I was just joking about Congo. I thought you said Con. I'm like, I'm not that old. I wasn't alive when Star Trek 2 came out, probably.
You never know. You're like Tommy Wiseau, Brett. No one's exactly sure how old you really are.
I'm 35.
And last but not least, the man who's not quite yet 35, Money Mikey Toller, fresh
Couple
off
weeks.
Crawl. What was your favorite time in a movie theater?
I would say my favorite / most memorable time would probably be Superbad. I think I said this on that pod too, but it was just so crazy loud with laughter that you couldn't even hear the next joke. And I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like that before or since. Pretty crazy movie to see with a full crowd.
That's awesome. I didn't share mine. I went to a midnight showing of The Shining with my sister in Minneapolis when I lived there. and she was super scared beforehand, but like the crowd was super rowdy and like laughing at all the early stuff in the movie, and it was just a great time. I'll never forget that. But I have never had the privilege of seeing The Room in theaters. I had seen it before this podcast, and like I mentioned at the top, I really regret choosing this. I fell into a deep room hole of lore. But Stevie, I know that you've seen The Disaster Artist. Let's set the stage here first, because in 2017 that really had this huge resurgence for the film The Room. Like, what do you remember about that, and kind of like the production at a high level of this movie?
So like the production level of this movie is so bad, but like getting into like The Disaster Artist, which is pretty much like, I guess, say a movie about the making of this film. It's almost like this movie never should have happened. Can you agree with that, Pap? Like, of how insane it truly is.
The fidelity of The Disaster Artist is disputed, but there are a lot of like key stories from that film which are just so insane, and then you find out that they're real. It's like, oh, I guess that kind of makes sense why this film's so batshit crazy.
Well, the reason they made the film is because they were, at least according to the movie, they were striking out and they weren't getting any acting roles, which, as we know, they're not very good actors. But, well, actually,
Denny is
Tommy
amazing.
Wiseau makes everyone look so much better than they really are because he's so bad.
Chris
at
R.
acting.
is one of the best actors I've ever seen, given the circumstances.
Would it be expensive to shoot a movie in 35 and HD if you're like doing it yourself, or that's what I'm reading on the
You
thing?
have to run 2 crews.
So yeah, it's expensive.
It'd be ridiculously expensive.
Josh, you know a little bit about film editing and filming. Is that a practice that's commonly done, to hook 2 cameras to one rig of different types?
Yeah, you know, like when the movie 300 came out, they did that at different focal lengths so that they could do some good CGI and like push way into like a character's. Yeah, the zoom into like the calf getting
that's a really
stabbed.
cool. Yeah, that's cool.
So there's precedent for multiple lenses.
Slightly different budget.
Yeah,
Well,
a little
this,
different.
This movie had $6 million,
Oh,
and
that's a lot.
Pappy and I were talking about that earlier. Like, it's really hard to tell where that went.
yeah, not the
$6
soundtrack.
million. And Stevie, we talked about this a little bit too. Just sorry to go back to you, but like, there seems to be some kind of nefarious conspiracy theory with the 2 executive producers that are listed, Chloe Litsky and Drew Chaffee. Speaking of The Disaster Artist, there's a great podcast, How Did This Get Made?
My favorite podcast.
All of those hosts appear in the film The Disaster Artist, which is kind of like a weird twist of fate. But do you remember kind of them touching on that at all, Stevie? It seems to be a weird goings on.
Yeah, so if you listen to How Did This Get Made, some 2011 like first year podcasts, they have the actual Greg Sesteros on
Seems
that.
like an asshole in that podcast.
He seemed real defensive about this movie.
Well, yeah, I'm sure he was really defensive. Yeah,
Like hyper defensive, but he kind of touched on like, they kept asking like, where did he get this money? Where did they get this money? And he says, oh, well, he would just call his ESL teacher and she would like give him the money. And he was like, anytime like, you know, we'd run into like production halts or we need more money, he would just call his ESL teacher, which it gets even crazier than that, doesn't it, Pap?
It really
It's
does,
more
because-
so than just having a benefactor.
Yeah, because so there's this big mystery that's presented in The Disaster Artist. Like, how did Tommy Wiseau come to have all of this money? And there's even one scene where the Seth Rogen character, who, as I flip my notes over, is playing Sandy Scheckler, who was the script supervisor, who now claims that he directed this film. But we can get into that in a second. But he goes to cash this check, and the bank teller is like, bottomless pit of a bank account, which doesn't seem to hold water. It's true that it seems that Tommy Wiseau had money, but he's also gotten sued a shit ton. Like, before The Room and everything, there are tons of court cases documenting Tommy Wiseau being sued by contractors, including executive producer of the film, Chloe Litsky. So she and her husband, Fred, sued Tommy Wiseau in 2012 for services not rendered. This is before The Room turned a profit, and they both died, I think, before that lawsuit came to fruition.
Spooky.
So, yeah, exactly. Was she the one who was providing the money? Why was he talking to this wheelchair-bound ESL teacher. And then just to touch on Drew Chaffee, too, he is the other mystery person of the film. No one knows what his involvement was at all. He died in 1999. The room was released in 2003, and he's listed as an executive producer. So
What does Tommy know?
Some speculate, Mikey, that was his former lover. And the last thing, Mikey, I want to talk about, I know you've seen The Disaster Artist. Do you buy the narrative of a jealous or stilted lover who was in love with Greg, that being Tommy, and that's kind of like the basis. It's kind of like what The Disaster Artist asserts, right? That Tommy was in love with Greg.
Yeah, it does kind of assume that, but he's never come out and said that, right? He's denied that, or he's never said anything about it.
Tommy doesn't say shit. Tommy keeps his mouth closed.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, I didn't rewatch The Disaster Artist for this, but you get some weird vibes just from, the room, I guess. I don't know, maybe there's some jealousy. Cause there's no script. They're just ad-libbing of what's going on. He's just I'm pretty sure he's just ad-libbing stuff reflecting in his life at the time. Cause, I don't know, it's just a really weird movie. There's no plot, really.
There's zero plot.
And that's the struggle that I've had. I don't think we've ever started as spoilers with just splooging all of our facts at once like that. But it's so hard to talk about this movie that I really didn't know what to say. So I just want to touch on a few high level scenes and characters.
Well, Pat,
and let you guys fill it in.
There's not all of the suing was incoming for Tommy Wiseau, right? Didn't he sue other people? And isn't there kind of possibly a darker tale where he actually got brain damage, and that's kind of what we see on film?
Yeah, so for a fact, he was in a couple of really bad car accidents, and some speculate that's where his weird personality came from, which might also contribute to how he came about some of his money. It is also true that he does own some real estate in San Francisco, which pretty much at this point, no matter what, if you own real estate in San Francisco, you're going to be doing pretty well. But interesting that you brought that up, Josh, that I think that Tommy Wiseau and Greg and that Sandy guy are just a bunch of assholes, and they've all sued and countersued each other. They've all written books. There's so many conflicting stories. There's so many conflicting reports. You listen to 3 different podcasts. There are 3 different stories about how this got made. So it's anything we say, just take with a grain of salt. There's a lot up in the air, and please don't sue us, Mr. Wiseau, for saying you were brain damaged in a car accident. But let's transition into the film.
Is that something that can happen?
I don't know. If he can remember it, then maybe.
Oh, jeez.
The film takes place in San Francisco, home of some of the greatest movies ever made.
13
Zodiac.
consecutive fade-outs of a shot from San Francisco.
And it's used like a sitcom uses to
oh my god,
cut in between, to show the passage of time even in one party. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Dude, was there a shot, the exact shot from Full House opening credits?
At one point they showed the house row, of the Full House
and they were on
houses.
the grass that I swear they were on in the opening credits, but who knows?
Was this music from was this music from Legend of Zelda?
Yeah. The music we'll get to the music, I'd imagine.
The music from Legend of Zelda is way better, but Mikey, we've talked around Tommy Wiseau, the human. Could you talk to us about who Johnny is, the character? Give us Johnny, Mikey.
Human with an asterisk. And I don't know why you guys keep calling it a film. It's definitely just a YouTube video.
Exactly.
There's hardly any context, but we just get John. This is the first scene. You want to go to the first scene? Is that?
Yeah, let's go there.
First scene is just his girlfriend sitting on the couch. Her name is Lisa, and in walks Tommy, and he's just like, "Hey, babe," no context.
Hi, babe. I have something for you.
What is it?
Just a little something.
he's just hiding something from his girlfriend Lisa, and it's a gift for her, and it's awkward the whole time. I mean, I wish we could splice in all of the dialogue to the movies just so you could get a taste of what he's saying or how he's acting, but you can tell that there's like absolutely no chemistry between these two people.
And one of the things we should also say is it's ADR like a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, that's even Brittany noticed that. She's like, "That's in the like my favorite scene is the flower shop."
Oh, it's my favorite scene too. Let's go right there, Brett. Tell us about what happens in the flower shop.
Hi, doggy.
Well, first of all, that's like, okay, I guess we'll get to the audio.
Come back.
This is, I don't know, it's like the funniest scene in the movie.
It's my favorite scene of the movie, by far.
He comes in to get
movie.
flowers. She goes, "Oh, Johnny, I didn't recognize you." And he gets it, and then he goes, "Hi, doggy." And then she goes, "You're my favorite customer." And he goes, "Thanks a lot, bye." And like, all dubbed, right? Like none of that was real audio, right?
Yeah, because they're not even talking to each other. They're not
right. That's what I thought.
Their context towards each other is not even making any sense.
Mm-hmm. And it's in between two sex scenes, and we'll talk about those characters later. But Josh, I know you care about themes more than the writers of Game of Thrones do. Like it feels like Tommy. In both the flower shop scene and in that opening scene, he is trying to portray, or excuse me, Johnny is the perfect husband, lover, man, and then it's just setting up for like the world to just be cruel to him. Do you kind of get that little like this is how Tommy sees the world vibe?
I think Ben Affleck called Bruce Willis's character in Armageddon a real salt of the earth kind of guy. And that's exactly what Tommy Wiseau is. He's
bath salts of the earth guy.
Yeah, wow.
And you just get the feeling that Tommy in real life is this awkward and thinks that everyone is like in love with him, and it's bad. Like Brett hit on it when he was like editing the movie. And he's like, I don't think that cash register lady liked me enough. Let's ADR in this line. You're my favorite customer.
You're my favorite customer. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I think you could make an argument. He's one of the only, if not the only, like, good, like, legit good character in the whole movie. The rest of them are pretty... I mean, we'll get to the girl, hopefully. I mean, the girl is a legit villain.
Let's get to her now. Let's go ahead. Her name's Lisa, and I want to kind of package her mom in Claudette because like that's her confidant. That's how we learn a lot about Lisa. But Brett, why don't you explain to the audience what Lisa? You said she's a real villain. She's basically Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, but even worse.
Yeah, she is. I mean, at first, like, for the first scene, you're like, "Oh, this is cool." It's like a typical couple. He buys her something. They go. He has sex with her belly button, and then...
There was nothing cool about that first scene.
No,
I don't mean cool. I just meant, like, she seems
Little
like a normal...
Denny's like, "Oh, can I come watch?"
No, that's... We'll get to Denny. Denny's creepy.
Oh, Squeak? Squeak?
Squeak Scolari, yes, for sure. She's just... Okay, so she doesn't love him. I don't know if you guys caught that she doesn't love Tommy anymore. Johnny, I don't know if you caught that. She only said it like 20 or 30 times.
She doesn't love him anymore.
Only after he
boring.
wouldn't talk to her after having sex with her.
Yeah, that's kind of like what they show. Like, I didn't even like notice that until you mentioned it. Like, she's like, "Oh, I wanted to talk. I guess I'll just cuddle." And I was thinking, oh, well, they do love each other. And then like the next scene, like out of the blue, she's talking to the mom.
No, that's just how hard you guys are trying to look for some sort of motivation.
Agreed.
There's
That's true.
nothing on screen.
I don't think that's what it is. I'm just saying it almost looks like that they kind of made it like that. But no, she's definitely evil. She claims that he hit her when she didn't. She fakes a pregnancy. She's banging his best friend.
Oh yeah, that came out of nowhere.
And like the dumbest thing of all time is like she's making out with a guy she's having an affair with in the middle of a party. It's just crazy. She's like I think she's like a legit villain in the movie. She's like the villain, and she's a terrible, terrible person.
Josh, is this villain iconic to you?
Everyone has a right to choose. Everyone's changing. I don't know if you knew that, Money. But
yeah, Lisa, and if you actually, there's a lot of great interviews with the actress who played Claudette. I want to actually, if I have her name on here, Carolyn Minot. She is the most delightful woman you could ever want to like listen to interview, and she's just so happy to have the opportunity and so happy that all of the fame that it's brought her. And she's like, "Yeah, Tommy was a lot nicer to me than everyone else. I guess it's because I was clearly older than him," is what she said in one of the interviews, which is pretty hilarious. But yeah, if you're trying to do a wormhole, she's a room hole. That's a good person to look up interviews on. But Stevie, you touched on it earlier. What the fuck is going on with Denny? Not Danny, Denny. Like
I thought it was Danny, and then it was Denne, and then it was Danny, and then it was Denne. It made zero sense. But okay, so this is a real like Tom Hagen type Godfather type backstory that Denny has. Tommy found him abandoned in one of the apartments in his building, and then decided to pay rent for him until he went to college? Am I doing that right?
He pays for his college, too.
Apparently, Tommy has also said that Denny has some sort of special needs or something.
And he's also hooked on the crack. I imagine that's what Chris R. wanted to throw him off a building for. So, yeah, that's Denny in a nutshell.
We also get some context that Tommy is a slumlord.
Josh, had you seen The Room before this podcast?
No.
What was your reaction to Denny saying, "Can I watch?" Like, what were you in that moment when you heard that?
I thought that's pretty early in the movie, so I thought that was part of like the early schluckiness. I think it was like the third or fourth sex scene that I kind of flipped, but I don't know. I was still in a good mood at that point, and I kind of chuckled a bit.
At that point,
I couldn't help but wonder, like, if Denny.
He had watched before. He had certainly watched before.
I think he wanted to be called just Den.
I don't like dropping rumors from this guy, and I talked about Sandy Schickler. I hope I'm pronouncing his name wrong. The Seth Rogen character in The Disaster Artist. I listened to too many interviews from him. He's a giant douchebag. He now claims that he directed The Room, which may be true, but he also has like just nothing but terrible things to say about pretty much everybody involved. He claims that there was a lot more weird, creepy child love vibes, and that Denny thing is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Then he held everybody back. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But that's, I guess, for the audience to decide. But we talked about The Disaster Artist. We've talked around this character. Brett, what's going on with Greg Sestero, a.k.a.
Oh, hi, Mark.
He seems like a pretty normal, nice guy at first. He's best friends with Johnny, even though I just never really got that. They didn't seem like they meshed that well.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but like to watch The Disaster Artist, it implies that like they are best friends. And Tommy Wiseau went on to direct a movie called Best Friends.
The actual guy.
Well, no, both. Yeah, but
they meet in Disaster Artist. They meet in an acting class, and Greg gets like the bug of acting, and they decide to move to L.A. and they move in together, and they become fast friends. And
he has luscious facial hair
at 19 years old.
Pretty impressive. He doesn't look 19.
Yeah,
no, he looks definitely older. Denny's if he was 19, then Denny, I think Denny was like 25. So, so I mean, yeah, that's kind of the story with that. That's how they met. Yeah,
yeah,
or Squeaks.
But you touched on it there. They were close friends, and then The Disaster Artist kind of implies that Greg had more early success than Tommy.
Yeah,
and Tommy was very jealous of that early success. And so, Stevie, how does that translate to Mark's character on the screen? How does Tommy treat Mark? Or moreover, how does Mark treat Johnny?
Okay, so you know like the story behind the original Mark that was casted, right?
Go for it. Tell us.
Okay, so the way it worked on Tommy, well, let me put it this way. Greg Sestero was like a big, he was kind of like a casting producer on this movie. He was in charge of like getting the cast involved and really going through who was going to be hired and whatnot. Tommy wanted 2 people hired for each role. And so what happened was Greg wasn't hired for Mark until the day before shooting. And Tommy didn't tell the original Mark that he had been replaced until 4 weeks into shooting.
Oof.
So what Tommy was doing was he was fake shooting real Mark. And he was fake shooting the original Mark, like telling him, like, okay, go, like saying cut, and thinking he had been in the movie for 4 weeks.
That seemed like a waste of money.
Yeah, because like also,
No,
like,
this movie didn't waste any money.
That's how you get to
Exactly.
a $6 million budget, Brett.
yeah.
Well, they didn't give water or air conditioning, apparently.
And Mark in this movie is treated like a real villain. It's almost like Tommy's trying to make himself like so good, and he's kind of like making Mark like the actual Greg. I don't know. It's really weird.
Mm-hmm. And we've bounced around a lot. We're 25 minutes into the podcast. We've covered about 8 minutes of film, but we're in our second sex scene. So Mark sleeps with Lisa. Immediately afterwards, he goes to Lisa and says, "Why did you do this to her?" Like, he puts all of the responsibility on her. Like it's just such a weird
To be
message
fair,
to send.
he tried his best to tell her no. I mean, she just didn't care about the no. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I guess, but he seems to
That's
go along
not
with
his
it.
best.
He told
Come
her no
on.
like 3 times if those roles were reversed.
No.
Okay, sorry. I guess no doesn't mean no if you're a woman.
She was a stronger influencer, yeah, maybe, but I don't buy that he tried his best. If that's his best, it's
Well, the
pretty
whole
bad.
point of the movie, they show that she's really, really manipulative, which she is.
He called her babe right when she called him for the first time
okay,
that Greg
I thought
showed
that was
up.
weird. I said that to Brittany. I go, well, she called him babe, but then I was like, oh, they're already sleeping together, and then I was super surprised to find out that they hadn't even like flirted really together. Like, I thought that was really weird.
Well, there's a hilarious line too when he first comes over. He's like, "The candles, the sexy dress, the music.
What's going on here?
What's going on here?" He says it so strangely, like. But there's a linchpin to this movie. I mean, we've established the players, and now it can really get rolling. Tommy doesn't get the promotion, like we mentioned. That Lisa seems to be kind of a gold digger figure in his life, who's having an affair with his best friend. He doesn't get the promotion, and so Lisa decides to get him drunk. And Mikey, why does she want to get him drunk? What is she trying to establish?
She just wants to get him drunk enough to make him make a mistake, and she wants to make this claim that he hit her, I think, is kind of her end goal here. So she has a way to get out of this relationship where she's being treated with respect, and she's getting everything taken care of for her. I don't understand. Really.
He goes on to say he did not hit her. He did not.
Yeah, yeah, but that is also out of context. We don't even see the fight that takes place. We just get Tommy going up to the roof to complain to Mark, who happens to be on the roof. Does everybody live in this one building?
On the roof.
Let's get to the roof scene. Stevie, do you have a favorite moment on the roof?
It's real weird, but it's when it's like a 5 minutes like throwdown scene where Chris R goes after Denny.
The best actor in the
makes
movie
no
is Zac
sense.
Efron in The Disaster Artist. The only person who can act in the whole fucking movie is Chris R.
So like Chris R pulls a gun on Denny, asking where his money is. And then after a whole bunch of, give me 5 minutes. I don't know. Give me 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. What are you doing in 5 minutes,
Go
Denny?
downstairs and get your money.
You have no family. What's going on here?
They're gonna helicopter it in like to the roof.
And so that's when Mark and Tommy show up and whisk Chris R away. And one of my favorite throwaway lines is when Tommy's like, let's go police. And then it builds from there. And so then Lisa and her mom are there, and they're like,
Yeah.
Denny, what's going on?
Oh, jeez.
There's a good 3 minutes of Denny going, I don't know. Denny, what's going on? I don't know. What drugs? I don't know. Who was Chris? I don't know. It's such a phenomenal, like, throwing down in the scene. And then it even gets so bad where Lisa's mom is like, she's chastising Denny. And I love the part where Lisa hugs him. You can definitely tell Denny loves this because his face is all up in Lisa's titties. It's hilarious. So yeah, that roof scene is definitely my favorite roof scene.
Let's take him to the police.
Fucking dead!
Are you okay? What did that man want from you?
Nothing.
Oh, that was not nothing.
Tell me everything.
You have no idea what kind of trouble you're in here, do you?
I owe him some money.
What kind of money?
I owe him some money.
What kind of money?
Everything is okay. He's gone.
Everything is not okay. Denny, that is a dangerous man.
Claudette is so great in this movie when she's just berating him. It's like, I'm going to call the police on
I mean, that's definitely the best scene, but don't sleep on the scene where Mark literally tries to murder Peter. And then, like, he's like, I'm sorry, man. And then they're, like, totally cool after that.
Okay, so who the fuck is Peter? Let's explain. In case you haven't seen The Room, Brett, who is Peter?
They switch.
You don't know who Peter is? They establish him so
well.
well.
I know who Peter is. I'm talking to the audience.
I'm joking. Yeah, he's their friend. He's a psychologist. He's actually, I don't know, maybe my favorite character in the movie, which isn't saying much, but he's like nice. And he's the one that figures out after looking at some pretty obvious body language that he kind of busts Mark out. Is it Mark? Yeah. Yeah, Mark out on the roof. Mark. He's like, you're sleeping with Lisa, aren't you? And he like, Mark flips out and literally tries to throw Peter off the roof. And then Peter gets away, and then Mark's like, my bad, man, I'm sorry.
Not cool.
And Peter's like, that's cool, man. Then they start talking.
There's
like
two
he just
Peters,
tried to
right?
murder you.
Actually, the other character, the other Peter's name is Steven, but we'll talk about that once we get to the party.
Oh, it's my favorite.
One of my favorite rooftop scenes is like Tommy is asking, Greg is asking Tommy if women cheat like men do, or if they like cheating like men do.
This is the best line, probably.
And Greg tells this story about a woman who was sleeping with 12 guys, and one of them found out, and he beat her up real bad. There's nothing funny about that. And Tommy,
good story, Mark.
Tommy was so scared, he just starts cracking up and says, "What a story!
What a story, Mark!"
What a story, Mark.
Yeah, you can say that again.
I feel like that, coupled with Claudette, my favorite character, just having breast cancer out of the blue, like, and then it never comes back for any reason at all. She's like, I have breast cancer. Like, these are not like the pedophilia with Denny, the breast cancer, the domestic abuse. None of these are funny on paper, but why are they so funny in the context of this film? They're funny, right? I'm not a horrible person, Josh, for laughing at these, right?
I mean, I'm not going to vouch for you not being a horrible person overall.
Fair enough. Yeah.
For like
in the context of this, yeah.
No, and like, there's even a coffee scene that like Brett said you shouldn't sleep on. It's just one continuous shot for like 45 seconds while Mark and Johnny are ordering their coffee. And it's so mundane, but you get the feeling that like in the writer's room, Tommy just thought he was like Quentin Tarantino with this dialogue. And it's like, I'll have a medium too.
No, but not only that, like it was either Honest Trailers or Cinema Sins. Like they point out the fact that you're sitting there watching random strangers order too. Like you watch 4 different people who you don't know order their stuff before Tommy. It's just so weird. Like usually, Johnny and Mark will be having a conversation, and you're focused on that, and the people are kind of ordering in the background. But no, they're just sitting back there waiting in line while other people order food and drinks. It's just crazy.
Pappy, is it just funny in hindsight though? Because like the experience of watching the movie, it's pretty frustrating when they don't go back and answer a lot of those questions. Like Denny's like drug habit never really gets answered. It comes full circle. Like
I've seen The Room now too many times, 5+ times, maybe closer to a dozen times than it's to 5 actually. But the thing is like it's amazing how much chaos of the film that you forget. Like the detail, like we kind of talked about your favorite in theater experiences. If you see this at a midnight showing, they throw spoons at the screen because all of the frames, all of the pictures, instead of having like pictures of his family or pictures of Lisa in his house, Johnny has pictures of utensils in his house, like framed. And it's just such a weird. Yeah, we'll go back and watch Mikey. He has pictures of spoons in his house rather than like his family. And it's just such a bizarre choice. It makes no sense. And perhaps it lends some credence to the fact that Sandy guy, Seth Rogen, directed the movie and was kind of like half shitting on it while he was doing it. But it's really, truly a mystery. I do want to talk about one part, though. Did anybody else catch this? I forget who it is. It's like, I think it's the guys, like I think it's Denny and Greg talking to Tommy, and they ask like how he met Lisa, and like, do you remember that dialogue, Brett? Like that monologue he has?
I just remember saying they've been together for 7 years and nobody knows how they met. Yeah, he met her at a hotel or something. It was like the most boring story ever. Well,
he talks about like they went on like on a date and that she paid for dinner and he had no money. Like he showed up with like $20 in his pocket or something. And like, did anybody else pick up on this? It's like the most true moment of the film. It feels like Tommy Wiseau's literally like telling his story. Did anybody else catch that?
I could see it now looking back at it. I probably didn't at the time.
This might have been where I was taking a little nap during the movie.
Well, Mikey, were you taking a nap during the tuck scene? Do you remember that
tuck
at all?
Scene? No, I don't remember the tuck scene.
Oh my gosh.
Does anybody, Stevie, you got me?
We go throw a football?
What the fuck is happening in that scene?
They must be trying on tuxes.
Is someone getting married?
Oh, I remember in the parking lot. Yeah.
It's also, I think, probably the truest part of the movie, too. I think this is, what's that dude's name, Peter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the one that falls? Shit. I think this is the truest part of the film. It's when he falls and everyone's runs over to go get him and he goes, okay, I'm done. I'm pretty sure that's the last time he's in this movie.
I think there's a throwaway line saying they're getting their wedding pictures taken, and that's where they're going to throw a football. And we see Mark. It's the noise of the chickens. We see Mark shaved. There's one more major scene that I want to touch on, and we'll just open this the fuck up. But Mikey, do you remember the party? Do you remember anything that happens at the party?
Yeah. Again, it's basically fever dream context. A lot of weird David Lynchian dialogue with no interconnecting story to progress it further. It's all just kind of weird stuff happening, weird dialogue. And then Lisa suggests that everybody goes outside for fresh air. And she happens to round up literally everybody, including Tommy, to go outside.
So bizarre.
Corners Mark to stay inside, where I guess she was planning to have sex with them on the couch and possibly
she's so stupid.
Planning to fellation.
The psychiatrist guy ends up catching them, right? Or is it just random?
No, this is the best part. Like a random guy you have not seen one time comes
That's
in.
Peter too.
It's Steven.
I thought that was Chris R.
Where's Chris R? Where's Denny?
So, yeah, Peter did have to leave the project, and so they hired the Steven guy to just basically read that character's lines as a brand new character.
Is that
Peter
really what
too?
happened?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I did not know that. That makes so much more sense.
But he's basically like chastising Lisa, like, you can't do this, Lisa. You can't be making out with someone. But for the audience, it has no weight because it's like, who the fuck is this dude talking?
You play character Steven.
And we talked about this with Stevie earlier. There's a fight, and then there's a shot of San Francisco, and it immediately cuts back to another new fight between Greg and Tommy. It's bizarrely edited, but the whole weight of the situation crashes down around Johnny. Josh, not only does he realize that his future wife is cheating on him, she's cheating on him with his best friend, and everybody in his life knows. And Josh, how does the great protagonist Johnny cope with this knowledge?
Everybody betrayed me. Johnny falls apart. if this movie has any redeeming quality, it's probably this. And it's kind of like when you watch Home Alone and you finally get to the end part where Kevin McAllister is pulling all the tricks.
Yeah.
And Tommy Wiseau is just going around smashing up his whole apartment. At one point, there's like a 3-angled throw of a TV out a window, like 3 separate camera angles, including street view of it hitting the ground.
The TV, which is facing the wrong way from all of their furniture in every shot of the room. No one can watch the TV the way it's pointed. It's pointed towards the audience, and all the furniture is pointed towards the audience, too. It makes no sense.
It's not over. Everybody betrayed me. I fed up with this world.
I think him pulling out the drawers was like the funniest part for me during that. It looked so unnatural. He pulls 2 out like he was hesitant to do it, and then he just pushes the whole dresser over. I don't know why I thought that was really funny.
He literally tried to put like all the best parts in this movie, because there's also like flashbacks to freaking Lisa being topless earlier.
Yeah,
he's saying no a lot. He's like ripping up the red dress, and then Pappy, it gets real. He grabs a gun out of a little chest, and he really wastes very little time.
Yeah.
I mean, of all the scenes they dragged out in this movie, I think he shoots himself within like 10 seconds of grabbing the gun.
By the way, he was doing a little more than ripping up that red dress.
Yeah.
I heard that the script literally reads, he pleasures himself with Lisa's dress. That's literally the direction that he was given. But it's an old saying in storytelling and screenwriting, Chekhov's gun, to show the gun in the first act that comes in the third act. And literally the easiest thing in the fucking world would have been to make that Chris R's fucking gun, and it would have made all of the sense in the world and would have been a decent plot point. But no, it's just a random gun that he owns that we've never seen before, and he kills himself. And one of my favorite details is as the camera's pulling up on Tommy Wiseau's body, and Greg says he's not going to be with Lisa anymore, so Tommy really showed them. You hear one of the neighbors says, "I saw smoke." What?
Was it originally going to be a fire, and they forgot to change it, or what?
I have no fucking idea, but it just makes no sense.
Pappy, I think you just hit on the ultimate theme, though. He
showed them.
This is like the incel fantasy. Like, you don't get the girl, you get cucked, and then you get revenge by offing yourself. Like, that's pretty ugly.
Not only that, it's not his fault. He's the perfect gentleman. He's the perfect white knight. He's the perfect milady, buying her flowers and buying her dresses and everything.
It's also ugly how medically inept Lisa was. I mean, Johnny's laying on the ground in a pool of blood with a gun next to his hand. Is he dead? Is he dead?
Well, she's in shock.
His brain is all over the wall. I don't think he's going to make it.
Tramp. You killed him. You're the cause of all of this. I don't love you.
Get out of my life, you bitch!
And that, my friends, is The Room. There are so many details.
Did we mention the bathroom line when he's locked himself away?
Go for it.
Oh, so good.
Oh, dude. This is... I can't remember the exact line, but the way he delivers it's so priceless. This is after the whole affair and party's gone down. Everyone's mad at everybody. And Lisa's trying to get Johnny out of the bathroom. I know he calls her a bitch, but does he say in a few minutes?
I think so.
Yeah, I have it right here. I think it's in a minute or something.
Like, in a minute, bitch. Like, it's...
he says in a few minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
It caught me off guard because it was like, not like, he wasn't like that very often in the movie. And it kind of shows us how crazy he got. But also the setting up of the recorder. Oh, man. It's just such bad film. Like 5 minutes of him doing that. Sorry, Stevie, go ahead.
Oh, no. You're good. Keep going.
Well, not only, Brett, does he set up the recorder for 5 minutes, then it magically has enough tape to record literally a couple of days later the exact dialogue he needs to indict Greg and Lisa on the affair.
It's surprising, like, Tommy's view of American cinema, really. It's like he had only seen deleted scenes his entire life and turned it into one giant film.
Mm-hmm.
Really, that's what it was.
Well, maybe that's the only thing imported into whatever strange country he's from. We only got the deleted scenes of every Hollywood movie.
I feel like he's got to be Scandinavian or something.
Polish.
He's born Stanley Weisker. The Reddit detectives have tracked him down. He was naturalized in New Orleans on May 17th, 1956, and he's from Poznań, Poland. So they know everything about him pretty much at this point. One of the other, except for who that fucking Drew guy is who gave him the money, one of the other things that I thought was hilarious, speaking of deleted scenes, is we didn't even talk about Mark or his girlfriend, what was her name? Michelle. So Mark and Michelle are like just these teenage lovers who like to bang in the room in the apartment.
Wait, his name was Mark too?
Oh no, not Mark. Mike. Mike. Yeah, Mike.
Cross-eyed lovers.
So, okay, chocolate is the symbol of love, Stevie. Do you just give us a quick rundown of Mike and what happens with him?
Okay, this is a really odd scene. This is the most memorable, like one of the more memorable parts of the movies. But for some odd reason, they have to show these teenage lovers, and she starts
They're supposed to be teenagers?
I don't know. They're supposed to be doing homework, and they're banging in someone else's house.
Oh, yeah,
someone else's house, and that hairstyle, man, that's some dated hair. He's got frosted tips. I mean, this is real bad. But she like starts to venture down south of the Belt region, and the face he gives is so odd and so unrealistic. I can't even... Yeah, she's like at the belly button. He starts giving a look of... Why would you describe the look, Pap? I can't even describe it.
It's cross-eyed and up, and I think I truly think that was meant to be comedy, right? Like, there's no way.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Could you imagine Kermit the Frog making a weird face?
Kermit the Frog getting a BJ.
Yeah, pretty much the same.
But the reason I say this is one of my final thoughts and one of my favorite parts of the movie is, like, he recounts this whole scene in a later scene in the movie. He retells this whole story to Tommy later. He's like, that's crazy. Like, he doesn't...
What a story.
He calls it a tragedy.
I've never seen a movie where someone beat for beat describes an earlier scene in the movie for no apparent reason at all. Any other details that you guys liked?
And it's not even like it's later in the movie they describe it. It's like, you're right, Pap. It's literally the next scene.
Minutes later, it's like, yeah.
Minutes later, yeah.
And like, you think it's going to be a different story. You're like, wait, I just saw that? And there's no outcome from it.
I think I would have enjoyed an 1.5 hour long movie of Mark and Johnny running and throwing the football to each other. That was like the funniest, when they're out there just running around throwing the football. First of all, what's the longest football pass thrown in the movie? When the guy falls at like 20 feet? The rest of them are all like 4 feet tall. That's like not fun. That's not fun for anybody.
You could see it was just
they love their football.
Killing Mark inside the real actor throwing this football with this guy who knew nothing about the sport of football in America.
I think one of my favorite parts of the movie, Pap, is one of the most memorable are the ADR over all the sex scenes.
Mark
and Johnny, like, oh, I love you, baby. Like, oh yeah, they really like went through the trouble of dozens of phrases like that. It's
for multiple actors, at least like 3.
Greg Sestero kind of talked on the How Did This Get Made podcast about how Tommy would ADR over perfectly delivered lines to make it sound even more American than when he originally delivered them.
Real Hollywood movie.
And yeah, just make real Hollywood movie. And it would end up sounding worse a lot of the time. That's what Greg said, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like the first, second, or third song, like during one of the sex scenes. And Brittany looked over at me and she goes, when was this made? And I knew exactly why she was asking. I go, I think it was like early 2000s. I go, you're asking because it sounds like it's straight 1995 R&B, right? She's like, yeah, what's with this music?
Here's my devotion. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you.
It's like sounds like
Boys to Men.
TLC's. Well, yeah, it's just. Oh my god, it's. I don't know. I'm speechless about. I mean, I can't say I'm speechless. I haven't shut up since it started, but this movie's just crazy. It does weird things to me.
It's what he could afford is the music they played. Man, there's so much more we could talk about. The green screen on the roof when they had access to a roof and they had access to a studio. There's so many details, many of them outlined in the Disaster Artist, but I think it's time for good old-fashioned yes or no. Let's go the order of trivia, the order of most recent to least recent host. Stevie, what do you give this on the yes or no rating scale?
Oh, man. This is really hard. Because it's almost like the story behind the movie is 1,000 times better than the actual movie itself. All right, I'm going to give this a no. And I'll say I'd rather watch Brie Larson's Room than watch this movie again.
Sure, Simon would love that.
That's a good movie, though.
That's a one-off, though. That movie's painful to watch.
It is very painful.
Very sad. I cried on a plane watching that movie. Josh,
Aww.
You next.
I watched this movie over the weekend when I was staying at a lake house with like 4 other couples. And
wow,
it's pretty late, so most people were in bed. Yeah. Well, it kind of got weird because I'm watching this movie alone, think it's going to be a schlucky, poorly delivered B-movie classic. And it's just sex scene after sex scene. And I was getting pretty uncomfortable, and like I wanted to finish this movie for spoilers. It was just a bad situation. I honestly don't think there's anything truly redeeming about this movie. There's a few laughs, but not worth the expense of an hour and a half. I think you can go on YouTube and watch all the funny clips. Like, I think you should watch the Flower Shop clip if you haven't seen this movie and just kind of leave it at that. I'm so mad at Mikey because my big line I was going to end with was, I don't think this is a film. To me, this is just a YouTube video. He stole that like right away in the pod. So huge no for me. I don't see myself ever watching Disaster Artist either. No, I James Franco is like creepy as hell too. Like, this is just a downward spiral I'm ready to be uninvolved with after this pod.
It was very interesting. I'll let Brett go in a second, but James Franco won the Golden Globe and was not nominated for an Oscar. This was in 2017 at the height of Me Too. That's when a bunch of like weird stuff. It was, I think his was like, I don't want to, I think it was like DMs like on Instagram to girls who were underage, but like it didn't really come of much. I don't want to touch that, Brett, especially with you for sure. Well, just give us your yes or no and what your final thoughts here.
I mean, I think we've said a lot of like the really bad quotes in this movie. Like, this is a really like not well known, underrated one, but I think it kind of sums up the script. Like, Lisa says, "Did you get your promotion?" And Johnny says, "Nah." She goes, "You didn't get it, did you?" Like, I wonder who reads that or writes that and thinks that makes sense. I guess you can blame the language barrier, but you know, I get a lot of crap for always saying yes for movies. But I got the results of the test back. I'm definitely going to give this a no. And
not a robot.
Oh, baby.
So you can just leave your stupid comments in your pocket. And anyway, how's your sex life? I'm done.
Mikey?
I'll give some criteria for how I grade these.
Ooh, a peek behind the money curtain.
1, is it around 90 minutes? This movie accomplishes that. 2, does it make me laugh?
Check.
This movie accomplishes that.
Check.
Bags.
What else is another? I got
bags.
No.
Bags.
It's just it, and how much do I got to pay to watch it? And it was free. It's on YouTube.
Check.
So it crosses off a lot of check marks. If you just want to go out there and watch it, and, I don't know, maybe have a couple beers. and watch it with your friends or something, I'm sure it'd be a lot of fun. So I'll give it a yes, just for the one-time watch, just to say that you watched it. I'm sure it's way more fun to watch with friends. I watched it by myself, and it was kind of painful to watch, so I don't think I could ever watch it again without some friends, because it's a truly awesome movie. But I give it a yes.
I see that totally. I think you get with a group of people and maybe get drunk and watch it and have like an amazing time.
Just like Young Guns.
Yeah. No, it's nothing like Young Guns. And for me, you guys are crazy. This is a hard yes. If there's ever been a movie that's so bad it's good, this is the perfect -10. I've discussed the parabola of a -10 and a 10 being at the same latitude on the scale. But like, it cracks me up. The one thing that I would caution against is, like I said, I went down a room hole of research, and it's ugly. It's Tommy Wiseau is like kind of abusive and terrible to the women. Like Greg and that director guy and Tommy, they're all like pieces of shit. And like, I don't want to take in any more media. Like, fuck the Disaster Artist. It's completely seems to be untrue, like incongruent to like everything else that I've researched. Like, I just want to enjoy this deconstruction of like what a film even is, like that breaks down the basic language of film and tears it apart. Like, it has everything I've ever talked about. Like, has like weird music, check. Funny accents, check. A universe in which we cannot possibly predict what will come next, check. That's what you need for a movie that's so bad it's good. It is gratuitous in the sex scenes, and that kind of keeps you from watching it with like a more conservative family member or your mom or something. But for me, this is the definition, the epitome, the apex, if you will, of so bad it's good. A hard yes. So that is 2 yeses, 3 nos. Brett, what food does this make this tonight?
A dozen
trying to think of this any.
Scotch and whiskey mixed in one glass.
I ordered a pizza. Do whatever you want. I already ordered it. You think of everything.
You think of everything.
It's definitely pizza. Got to be, or
half
Rose.
Hawaiian,
One
half,
or two.
Parmesan prosciutto or whatever god awful
pesto
yeah. pizza she ordered.
Great call. All right, you guys ready for some trivia?
Yeah, real quick, Stevie. Yeah. Brittany said that this was better than Vision Quest, and that Vision Quest is the worst movie she's ever seen. So I'm trying to talk her out of it. She hates that movie so bad. So
what
sorry
does she
about
have
that.
against that movie?
To be fair, it's kind of a guy movie.
Well, to be fair, Brittany's not on the podcast, and that seems to be, for a reason if she doesn't like Vision Quest. But speaking of guys, the order of guys is Stevie with Vision Quest, Josh with Darjeeling Limited, Brett with 7, and Mikey with Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
So I was going to get way more intricate with this trivia, but like I said, I went down a room hole, so it's going to be the most basic, closest to you can possibly have. And it's actually related to the movie, which is very unusual for our trivia. But we're going to take the number of oh-hays times the number of oh-highs times the number of times Tommy Wiseau's name appears in the opening credits. Good old-fashioned, closest to no Price is Right. Starting with Stevie. Oh-hays times oh-highs times the number of times Tommy Wiseau's name appears in the opening credits.
Okay. I'll go with... Hold on one second, see. I'll go with 560.
60? Josh, you're up next.
Take 160.
Okay. Brett, you're up next.
That last one was a multiplication as well, right? Times and times.
Yep. Oh-hays times oh-highs times number of times Tommy Wiseau's
to the power
names.
of.
Can I get
first, Brett?
Can I get one clarification?
You got the exact amount that Rogue One made on Vision Quest, and you still complain. So no, you may not get a clarification.
Okay, I just wonder if you had to say but okay.
That really made me mad because I beat you straight up on that, and you got the number of. You said, "Did Rogue One make less than $2 billion?" And Stevie said, "Yeah," and I almost flipped over my fucking table when he said, "Yeah." I was so pissed.
I admitted that you won. I just said that Stevie's comment didn't make any sense.
We need a guess.
1,080.
Woo! 80. All right, Mikey.
I'll go 350.
Holy shnikes, boys! This is requiring math.
Oh no. Top men.
This has got to come down to. Oh my goodness.
It's a tie!
Mikey was off by 101.
Ooh.
Well, I'm out.
Josh was off by
Let's go!
89. Josh is your winner. The true number is 249. There were 6 O'Hays, there were 7 Ohais, and Tommy Wiseau's name appears 7 fucking times in the opening credits, resulting in 249. Josh, it's your movie to pick, but first let's throw it to Spoiler Man for some plugs.
Spoiler Man here. Our email is podcastspoilers@gmail.com. Twitter is @spoilers_pod. Our Instagram is Podcast Spoilers. It's lit. Josh Hensley from the Rutabaga wrote our theme song.
And we're back. Thank you, Spoiler Man. Josh, what will be our movie next weekish?
I wanted to pick a movie that was recommended to me by a good friend. I don't think we'll have him on the pod or anything, but shout out to him. It's the 36th Chamber of Shaolin. It goes all the way back to
a Wu-Tang movie?
1978.
Yep.
So, I don't know if you guys have seen this one. It's definitely not Wu-Tang, but...
Kung Fu?
Isn't the Farmer Bro on
Dude,
this
the
movie?
Wu-Tang Clan based their whole persona and everything off these movies, so...
So it's a Kung Fu movie?
Yeah, it's an old Kung Fu movie, I think. Josh,
Is it Kung Fu, Josh?
Oh yeah, guys. Oh yeah, boys.
Still not gonna do Godzilla, huh?
Still.
Will you guys not let go? I mean, how do you even know about that?
What's your avatar?
We'll get you someday. 36th Chamber of Shaolin?
The 36th Chamber of Shaolin.
The 36th Chamber of Shaolin. That was The Room, and that also was Spoilers. Oh, hi, Spoiler Man.
Oh, hi.
Wow, back-to-back Josh.
Hold on, give me a second.
Josh is scrambling to find a movie.
Stevie, I put that bathroom quote on the thread. It's so funny.
I just know I have breast cancer.
I got the test
It's
results back. It's definitely breast cancer.
I got the results of the test back. I definitely have breast cancer.
That is not funny, but it is.
I made a folder, by the way.
Her lack of a reaction
My man.
is so visceral. It's like she almost hates her mother, too.
Room. It's not Room.
Yeah, but I was trying to do it really quietly because I typed once when we were on the pod, and you guys were like, "What are you doing? That's so loud." So, thank you for changing it.
Do you remember that time you were making popcorn?
I wasn't making popcorn. My wife was cooking.
Hey,
with aluminum foil.
And it wasn't popcorn. It was definitely foil. She
And Brett thought
had
it was
a
a good
carry-in.
idea to pod in the kitchen.
That's where I used to pod, man, until we got the grandfather clock, and that just kind of kind of ruined it.
Man, Mikey was so close. I thought he had it there. I was
What-
like, I do
what
not
did
know
Josh
which is
get?
closer. 160, 350, and the answer was 249.
Oh my god.
My math was 15 times 12 times 6, so I was good,
They're
close on the
way
names.
less than you think, but like if you
Yeah.
think it's like 11 in a 90-minute movie, it's like, yeah, that sounds about right, actually. You ready?
I got my movie.
Right. And we're back.
That was Spoilers.